Welcome to the channel, everybody. Today's video we're focusing on maybe finding a golf club that's going to work within your budget. Now, we've just come out of a really busy season, but we're still hunting down the bargains, aren't we? Well, I thought today we'd have a little look for a driver. Online shopping, let's see what we can actually get for our £200 budget. Going into the search bar, we're going to look at drivers to get us going with. I'm going to kind of focus on the big top 4 driver brands that are kind of out there. We're going to start off with, well, let's go with Taylormade, shall we? So £200. So setting that budget at that £200 mark, jumping out at the top. Stealth drivers. Didn't think we'd kind of move to stealth drivers around the sort of £200 mark. This one in particular is in a sale. It's a 9 degree, it's stiff flex. We've actually got those Stealth 2. Now you've got to think of where we've kind of got to now. We're in the QI4D drivers. We were at the QI35s, we've got QI10s, and then we move into kind of like the Stealth models. Now, one thing I would say, looking at this Stealth 2 driver, which is the newest out of the batch that I can kind of see from here, this is the hottest driver that I have ever hit to date. So what I mean by that is that all the testing that I've done throughout the years of drivers, the driver that's given me the biggest or quickest amount of ball speed is the Stealth 2. It was the LS version, this one being just your standard version, but it just shows that the technology in these drivers is certainly something for you to seriously consider. Whenever I'm looking for drivers, certainly second-hand drivers, I'm always looking for kind of the marks on these drivers. And you can kind of see it in this picture that I've got here. Someone's roofed it straight away. We've got a sky mark on top there. So that's something that probably can't be fixed unless you have to strip the whole thing back. And for me personally, that's probably a bit of a no-no. This one doesn't come with a head cover. If you look over here, you can kind of see exactly what there's offering. So shaft is fair, head is fair, grip is fair, but with that sky mark and no head cover, I'm going to probably give that one a little bit of a wide berth. But kind of working our way down through these clubs here, we've got the Sim 2. Now the Sim 2 was a really, really good driver. Again, the Sim driver, very, very popular driver back in the day. You kind of thing with Taylormade is they have this kind of pear-shaped look to it. So it kind of thins out from kind of like the neck area and then bubbles out into the top. And that's its own look. Whenever I've kind of looked at Taylormade drivers, I've always probably struggled a little bit with my alignment with them. When you look at the top of the drivers, if I just click on this Sim 2 driver as an example, and we'll take a direct look down below. So as you set up, you can see that Taylormade logo on top there. Sometimes that doesn't always look perfectly centered to me, and it's just how the head kind of sets up behind the ball. And each to their own on that, but that's the reason why we've got so many different drivers on the market, and you will find something that kind of works for you. Great thing about having a look on a company like Golf Clubs for Cash is you get left-handed options as well. How many pro shops do you go in and you don't get to see that left-handed product, which is a little bit of a disappointment. What is interesting though is still holding its value here. 2017, the M1. Now I remember testing this driver and it was a popular driver, probably the M2 more so than the M1 driver, but the M1 driver in the 2016 model, because they changed them pretty quickly. You got to remember they're probably a lot of the time on kind of 2-year cycles. However, Taylormade focusing on 1-year cycle, going from that 2016 into the M1 2017, and the big noticeable difference going from the older model, which would look a little bit where we're seeing this is in the M1 here in 2017, we're seeing it in the kind of colors of fluorescent yellow in there. Can you see that in the 1 mark there? Well, in the M1 from 2016 and even the M2, it was more of like a golden color in there. But if we look at this one, really, really clean driver for its age, 10.5 degrees, saying that the head is fair. I would say that's pretty good as far as I'm concerned. If we work our way through, yes, it comes with a head cover, and you can see that person who's had it before has kept it nice and clean. Comes in a regular flex. Remember, this is the M1 is the low spin head. The 2016 was really, really low spin. So we were able to generate a little bit more spin out of the 2017 model, which was really important. Remember, if you've got something that's low spin, you want to try and get that thing lofted up a little bit as well. If we work our way down to the bottom though, so for £189.99, for £190, you can get yourself an M6 driver. Some of you may think, well, that's going back a little bit down. We've gone beyond kind of the stealth range. Well, M6, got to think that Aaron Rai was using M6 and still is using M6, one on the PGA Tour, one on the DP World Tour. So this driver is still performing extremely well. So let's take a closer look at what Ping are offering from their lineup. G400 looks like it's the one that's kind of jumping out on top. And though we've got the G410. G410 coming in the SF Tech. Now remember, there's a in the modern kind of stuff from G410 onwards, we've got LST, so low spin technology. What you'll find with that particular driver, and we'll look at one probably in just a moment, but low spin model means all the weight is pushed forward, having a low spin launch off of that driver. Then we move into kind of like the standard head, kind of what's going to fit into the majority of golf bags really. And then we've got the SFT, which is what this one is. Interestingly, SFT coming in at 199 in the G410. This driver, again, still being used quite heavily on the Tour, I believe. And also, to be fair, the G400 still being used quite heavily. But the SFT, straight face technology. This one has a little bit more heel weighting for those players that hit a little bit more of a slice. This one's going to work quite nicely for use. It's going to help slow down the heel, quicken up that toe, keep that club face a little bit squarer. And ultimately, if you're somebody that maybe is losing a little bit of ball speed, SF Tech probably going to help with you as well. Again, a few different offerings when it comes to right-handed and left-handed, which is fantastic. They have got plenty of products, haven't they? But going all the way down to the bottom, for £183, picking up the G425. So we go G425, we've got G430, and then now we've got G440. So we're seeing, what, three-year-old model, something like that, 3 generations old, £183. Low spin technology, 9 degree in a regular flex. What's interesting when you go online is you do get to see these combinations, I suppose, of low spin heads, low loft, but regular shaft. It's not something you'd probably necessarily get massively fitted into. But let's take a closer look. So clean look, good driver this. The thing with this driver is it was really quite loud. Like I remember when I was testing it, I was like, wow, that is a big jump in noise. You find that over time these companies will move from kind of a thuddy, duller sound from a driver into more sort of louder sounds, and they'll just move around their acoustics. They always sort of say that it's going to be the tour players that tell them what they're kind of looking for, but I don't know. I think they're just, a lot of the time it comes down to having something slightly different, a lot of it. So head, they're saying, is in poor condition. Look at the state of that grip. If you look at a grip, whenever you're buying online, just be mindful, you know, you're going to have to replace this grip pretty quickly. This kind of shiny area on the grip, we're seeing a lot of wear and tear in that particular setup there. So anything when you see it a little bit shiny, a little bit of hot soapy water, scrub it out, that will probably help. But I think when it gets really shiny like that one, it's pretty much gone. So we've got a few offerings, even going down to the G30, which is quite an old driver now. However, you can still pick it up at around £170. Let's now take a closer look at what we can see from Callaway. Straight away, jumping into Rogue. I can see the Rogue, I can see the Paradigm, which again, you're going back in a couple of generations. I've got to say, just scrolling down through, in my mind, this is kind of where I see how good Callaway have been over the years. And they've kind of, in my mind, kind of led the way a lot of the time when it comes to drivers, and have done with AI technology, things like that. But I mean, working my way down through the list here, I'm seeing a lot of LSs or triple diamonds, things like that. So what you're going to find when it comes to, you know, I said with Ping have a number of different offerings with a standard head. They've got their low spin head, they've got their more friendly head. Well, obviously all these companies have the same. And first one up, the Rogue ST driver. Now, I've got to say, to be fair, all the ones that I'm seeing on here are all really, really good drivers. The technology really for Callaway, I would say, has really been more in the face, where they've talked about using artificial intelligence to be able to create, let's call them hotspots. So hotspots around the face that enable us to be able to still maintain good ball speeds with off-centered strikes. And that's ultimately what we're looking for. We're trying to get that ball out there as far as we can when we don't quite catch it. However, that's the thing that you're going to see. And it's also going to help with consistency. So off-centered strikes, ball speed stays up, and it stays on the golf course as well. Those are the things that I've noticed when I've done a lot of my testing. But just taking this one as an example, this one being the triple diamond, as you can see here, it's got LS, but it's got those 3 diamonds. That is where we're seeing this low spin model, again, very similar to the LST and the Ping. I've always struggled with these because I don't have the club head speed to be able to keep up with this. If I need something to work for me when it comes to a driver like this, I'm going to need to loft it up a lot to generate a little bit more spin to keep that ball up in the air quick, you know, for as long as I can for the flight. Weight gets pushed forward, weight gets taken away from the back, pushed closer to the face. That's going to get that low spin impact that players are looking for. So for players that hit the ball really hard, spin the ball quite a lot, this is the sort of driver that you're going to want to put in your bag. For those players that want a little bit more help, want to maybe keep the ball in the air just a little bit longer, then maybe this driver isn't going to work for you. You want something that's going to be, again, look at the state of that grip again, a little bit shiny. But I think all in all, that driver there is in really good shape. I love the kind of matte finish, love that carbon look. I even really like that orange that they had when it came to that particular driver. Still got friends of mine that still use that driver. Triple diamond, you know, again, ST triple diamond in the Rogue. If I go down to where was the first Paradigm that I saw, I did see one on there. There you go. There's one in there for £197, 9 degrees, stiff flex, Project X. So again, going to be a bit solid for those players that want to hit the ball quite hard. But there's a lot of, look at that, a lot of triple diamonds, a lot of low spins, which indicates to me that there's a lot of players out there trading in clubs that don't work for them. Anyway, working our way down, another great driver with the Epic Speed driver. There's one that kind of jumps out to me here, which I could probably pick that up for $189.99. Let's take a closer look at this one. Different look to this, whereas we saw that matte finish out of that ST, that Rogue, you know, the Epic, the original Epic, this is what this one was kind of a little nod to. The original Epic was that kind of green look to it, really solid driver, had that jailbreak technology built into them. But this one's the Max, so this is the kind of more forgiving head. Got that rail on the back there, which enables us to be able to move it into draws, fades, keep it more neutral. It is the LS, so again, lower spin version. And the head itself, yeah, it's okay. I mean, I don't want to see anything too bad on top. Really solid shaft in that one there. That's a 6. What is that? That is a 60 gram stiff in the Ventus, which is, I think, is pretty good. Again, a lot of what I'm seeing here, you're going to have to change your grips because they are looking a little bit worn. But yeah, lots of drivers in here. Probably I would say maybe if I was going for an LS or a low spin model, I'll have to move into something like a 10.5 degree head to keep it on the straight and narrow for me. Let's now look at what Titleist have to offer us. First one up, TSR4 driver at the top there, reduced down, actually in a bit of a sale. TSR4 is a really small looking head. It's really low spin. There's a lot of low spin drivers on here. But again, it just indicates that, you know, if players end up getting into the wrong driver, you're going to find a driver that is, when it's low spin, it's going to be really unforgiving. So if players get frustrated because they're missing fairways or hitting balls out of bounds, you can see why there's lots of those drivers ending up on this site. But TSI, I used the TSI3 driver for quite a few years. I got to say that driver was one of my favorite drivers, and I could still absolutely put that back in the bag today. TSI2 driver, a little bit more forgiving compared to the TSI3 driver. I always like the TSI3 driver because and I use a GT3 driver now, which is kind of the next couple of generations on TSR. then we moved into the GT. So at TSI 3, which I've got in the back there, I could still happily put that in play. And I got to say, I did run back to that driver a couple of times when I was struggling to kind of get used to maybe a newer driver. Now, the TSI 2, a little bit different in its profile. If I just click on it, it's going to be slightly different in its profile. It's a lot bigger in its head. And for me personally, I felt like it was a little bit too big. Whereas I think that kind of squat look of the TSI 3 or TSR 3, I thought was just a little bit friendlier look and a little bit more kind of rounded or pear-shaped in its kind of look at address. This grips, again, when you take grips like this one, so this is the MCC, I just want to point this out as well. You know, think about car tires, okay? You're not seeing lots of car tires out there, lots of different colors on the car, on the wheels. And the idea of that is because as soon as you put ink into rubber, it dries the rubber out. So as soon as we put ink into the grips of clubs, it dries the rubber out, which is why you kind of find that you probably need to change your grips on a more regular basis than what we're seeing here. But all in all, pretty tidy from what I can see with that TSI 2. If we work our way down, I bet there's some beauties on here. This is, we're seeing TSI is kind of where we're at. I'm sure there must be another one here, the 915 D2. Now, I thought we might have seen a TS in here before we'd have seen that 915 D2. Now, 915 D2, the jump, I've got to say, the jump between the TS range, so you went TS, TSI, TSR, then into GT, which is kind of where we're at now. Before that, you were in the 915s, the 917s, even before the 915s. So 915 used by Jordan Spieth to win the Open Championship at Royal Birkdale, which again is going to be played this year at Birkdale. But the jump that I saw from the TS from the previous generation of 915 and 917 was quite big. So what I would say is, looking at the way that they've priced this driver of the 915, I'm a little bit surprised that it's made it onto this front page, if I'm honest with you, when it comes to the Titleist lineup, because it just doesn't perform as well as what we're going to see out of the TS range. But what I would say is probably the shaft has jumped in as probably being the most expensive part of what this driver is. An Oban 65 shaft. It's purple. It's very shiny grip again, but the shaft itself is probably in, well, it's not a standard spec shaft, so it's not going to be something that you're going to find on the shelf. So that's probably what's making that driver just that little bit more pricey from that point of view. But the head itself is it just doesn't perform as well as what we're seeing out of the TS range. So if I had to pick now from all the lineup that we've kind of gone through here, which one am I going to be looking at when it comes to this? I think I would have to move over probably to Callaway. If I was really looking to spend my money, my £200, I'd probably be looking at this 10.5 triple diamond that we've got here. It's a tent size 65 gram. I think the spec of the driver looks really quite clean. I love that orange kind of look to it. I think like I said, it's the low spin model, but because it's 10.5, I feel like I could probably generate a little bit more spin out of it. Yeah, I think that's the one that would probably jump out to me. It's still got a decent grip on it. That looks like a fresh grip. Can you see how it's really clean there? Head's in good condition, grip's in good condition. It's got the +4 grip, which is the grip that I, funnily enough, use. The shaft is in good condition, but it doesn't come with a head cover. However, I'm not too fussed about that because I do use head covers that I wouldn't use from the product anyway. So my head covers are from clubs that I've picked up from around wherever I've been traveling to. So there we go. That is the club that I would be picking out. Now, as you can see there, for a £200 budget, even though there's lots of options available, I think there's something there for kind of everybody. When I looked through them, there was lots of different lofts, there was lots of different shaft options available. You know, these price of drivers are getting expensive and not everybody can afford to keep changing their driver and spend lots of money on a driver, but I think for a couple £100, you can find an absolute bargain out there right now. But I'd like to hear down in the comments what you think. Are you somebody on the search for a new driver? Are you someone who's prepared to put in an older model driver to help you with your game? Don't forget, if you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button and we'll see you again on the next video.